Before we get started, I've got some exciting news. HelloFresh is now a proud sponsor of Divorce and Beyond. If you've been thinking about cutting back on grocery bills, avoiding food waste, or just getting dinner on the table without stress, this is your moment because right now, HelloFresh is offering one free item in every box for life. That's right, every single box you order includes a free item forever. And just to give you a taste of what that looks like, get it, taste, I got pineapple upside down cakes in my first order. I originally discovered HelloFresh during the pandemic, and I fell in love with learning new recipes and expanding our dinner routine. I let it go for a while because, hey, I live in Chicago with world-class restaurants on every corner, but with today's rising costs, HelloFresh is back on my table, and I'm so glad it is. So if you're ready to save time, money, and dinner, go to divorceandbeyond.com/HelloFresh and sign up today to grab that free item for life. You can also find a link in the show notes or divorceandbeyond.com/HelloFresh. And now let's get into today's episode.
Coming up on today's episode of the Divorce and Beyond podcast.
I had a conversation with the lawyer just prior to a conversation with the client, and I had in my head how I thought it might go, but I put it right on her because this is a smart woman who knows all the answers on how he ticks. She's the expert in her spouse. I need her to tell me what's going to work. That is the true dream team, when you have the client who can articulate and be a member of the team from her own heart and her own brain rather than her Greek chorus.
Hello, and welcome to the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host. As a top divorce attorney and family law mediator for 30 years, I know what you need to know to get through your divorce and, most importantly, how to move beyond it to thrive and transition to your new future. My experts and I are here to give you the insider view into the process, so listen in for the wisdom and expert information you need on your journey through divorce and beyond. Welcome back to Divorce and Beyond. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, and today we are continuing our special two-part series with the Billion Dollar Dream Team. In part one, last Monday, we pulled back the curtain on what divorce looks like when billions of dollars are at stake, the unique challenges, the strategies, and the inside perspective that only comes from decades of experience handling ultra-high net worth cases. But here's the best part. The lessons from those cases aren't just for billionaires. In part two, our dream team is taking those big dollar insights and showing you how they apply to your divorce, no matter your net worth, no matter where you are in the process. So let's dive in with Michelle Smith, Jenny Stevens, and Beth McCormack for part two of the Billion Dollar Divorce Playbook, Lessons from the Dream Team You Can Use Too. Today, we're going to take insights from the team and show you how some of those fundamental principles that they apply in their larger high net worth cases or celebrity cases and how those can empower your divorce journey, no matter your net worth, no matter where you are in the process. So let's dive into taking some of those high net worth lessons that we talked about in part one and have them sort of trickle down to the real people like us, right? The ones who maybe don't have the billions of dollars in the bank. Part of that is we touched on in ultra high net worth cases, often the preparation starts a year or more before the divorce actually gets underway. There's something about preparation that I think can be carried over. Michelle, in this episode, let's start with you because finance and pulling together the information, understanding the financial realities is often one of the more difficult parts, even when you're not talking about billions of dollars. So how important is that power of prep and getting the documents pulled together?
It's critical because if you didn't have the financial transparency, you're going to be more scared that things are truly gone, hidden. You were cut out of accounts. Women also sometimes have this belief that just because their name isn't on it, it's not theirs. And somehow you can make something disappear, right? It's a bouncing ball that we have to follow, and we just have to start somewhere. And the more time, the better. Very often somebody will say, I remember seeing, or we sat with a piece of paper and he wrote down all this stuff, right? It's not always about just immediate get the documents. It's conversations about what you think you have. Did you sign your own tax return? Did you do any estate planning? Did you apply for a mortgage? That's a federal financial affidavit that has to be accurate right? So there's very different ways, right? Applying for a credit card, you have to state what your income is. So it's for me, if someone says, I have nothing but an additional American Express card on his account, there's always something we can pull. And it just starts with conversations, right? Doesn't have to be big and scary from the get-go. You're right. You may not have user IDs and passwords for your investment accounts. You may not know what's in his retirement account, but you know more than you think you do if you start with conversations about how to back into how we can get information. Again, in a non-confrontational, non-igniting way. Just transparency. We're just looking for transparency.
And that's a key word. And I love that approach to, Beth said it in episode 1, being curious, asking the right questions. I mean, it starts there with the financial side of things as well. And the earlier you start asking those questions, the better and the more time you have to piece things out. And, Beth, one of the things that we talked about in episode 1 was that sometimes it can take a year or more, I think you said, just to get a good understanding of all the finances in these ultra high net worth cases and pulling everything together. But getting all that information, it really doesn't matter whether it's billions or thousands or hundreds, you do still need to know and have a good, solid understanding of what the finances are that you're dealing with. Before, I always talk about it, people always want to start dividing up what they have before they even know what they have.
Just like any game, right? You need to lay out all the cards.
Yes.
So I am mindful of back in the day when I was doing more typical divorces, I used to talk about if you're refinancing your mortgage, that's the only other time other than estate planning when all the cards are out on the table. So maybe you can do something as simple as if the financing a property, being creative on data gathering for other purposes other than divorce, but you're obviously going to get the information. Same with estate planning. And back to maybe meeting with your financial advisor. Those might be the places where you're hearing your spouse say, maybe for the first time, and maybe signing documents, that this is all we have. Sometimes being creative that way. Again, I don't want to make it sound like you're being unethical or immoral or conniving. You're simply trying to get the knowledge. And if there are ways to do it without the big D word being discussed, it can be helpful.
Well, also, if you do it ahead of time, right? In the middle of a divorce, you are now learning literally Latin words. Latin words. Okay, you're learning Latin, you're learning divorce jargon, you're learning financial jargon, you're drinking water out of a fire hose, you're making parenting decisions. You're terrified of not being with your kids every weekend and having to co-parent, especially if you feel that the other parent isn't a good parent. Like, if you have to do all of that immediately at once, how right? Jenny, from your perspective, can you make good decisions from a place where you just feel like all of it has to be together at once? This has to be a little bit more measured and let it evolve a little bit more so that you can make better decisions in the crisis points.
How much time do you have? I'm just kidding. I mean, here's the deal. I mean, I could talk about this for hours. Boundaries are your best friend. You got to figure out how much to take off, how much to chew, how much do you want to spend today on your divorce, whether it's with someone like Beth or whether it's with you, Michelle. Grief comes in waves. Okay. You can feel gutted one day and then you're like, I'm relieved we did this. So be nice, love on yourself, self-care. It's survival, not luxury. You need to figure out what your non-negotiables are in terms of taking care of yourself, or else you're gonna, health stuff happens. And then your support system. Not only we talked about this relay concept of having good people on your team, is who are you spending time with? You're the combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose those people wisely, and then also choose your thoughts wisely. What are you telling yourself? What thoughts are you thinking? Where there's a saying, like our thoughts are things and things have wings. You got to talk. You got to have good mind chatter. You need to know who's living for free up in your head. And then the last piece is you need to also look at a divorce can be a business transaction. You need to always model for what your kids want, but you also have to understand 90% of divorce is emotion. And if you can accept that truth, then again, you go to your experts like Beth and Michelle's and me's of the world, and you navigate and rely on the people that can help you. And then again, you'll just go back to that grief, and taking care of your emotional self is extremely important so you can make wise, sound decisions.
I have a public service announcement. You ready?
Oh, here we go.
Your divorce lawyer might not have her MBA. She has her law degree. Might not be a child psychologist, might not be a mental health professional. And even though we may not be that, but we play one on TV, I hear all the time, my lawyer didn't do this or that, and I think I need a new lawyer, and I don't have So your lawyer is a legal strategist. A good lawyer will take your facts, your priorities, what you say is important, and come up with the story and the narrative and the strategy to get you there. If you are not in a healthy relationship with your divorce lawyer and you think that they should just take over where, again, wife is client, right? Gave husband financial control. If you do that in your lawyer's office, how's that relationship going to work? So, right, there needs to be an element of like, this is my divorce. It's not Beth's divorce. It's not Susan's divorce. It's not Michelle or Jenny's divorce. It's mine. If I don't feel like I have a strategy, I need to ask until I feel I do.
Michelle,
If I don't,
this is so important. And where I was going to go
so important.
after what Jenny said is the Greek chorus, because I am only divorcing you in this moment. Your cousin's best friend's divorce does not matter to me, but you want to pay me to process that with you. You really think long and hard about that. And that goes back to the other team member, Jenny, helping them tease that out. Don't waste your money, my time with talking about everybody else. And again, Jenny so eloquently put the 5 people who live in your brain. I have never heard of that. Love it. But who are you going to let in? Your sister does care only about you, but that doesn't mean that she has the best legal strategy. Please let me take that piece for you so that you and your sister can go shopping and have fun. Make these people stay out of your divorce.
And folks are vulnerable, I think everyone listening has to ask themselves what triggers them and where they want growth edges. Because if you lean on the neighbor or the sister that I'm sure has your best interest, but might not know what the heck they're talking about, the vulnerability that you feel, be careful of who you're looking for when you are feeling vulnerable, sad, defeated, and whatnot. Sometimes it's just better to go take a hot bath and a walk around the block. It might not be to call somebody like Beth is saying and Michelle to ask them what they think, because we would say, don't ask them what they think. We all would say, quiet yourself and ask yourself what you think, because your intuition and your guidance and your internal compass is 90% of the time better than anyone else's advice. When Beth says, I need to feel aligned and help my clients through this thing, you are coaching them, because I've worked with Beth many times. You are coaching each of our clients to ask themselves what they feel that they need, not what Michelle wants or what Beth wants.
Jenny and I were on a call yesterday where I had a conversation with the lawyer just prior to a conversation with the client. And I had in my head how I thought it might go, but I put it right on her, because this is a smart woman who knows all the answers on how he ticks. She's the expert in her spouse. So without her knowledge of, I need her to tell me what's going to work. That is the true dream team. When you have the client who can articulate and be a member of the team from her own heart and her own brain rather than her Greek chorus.
Can I say one thing? This is really important. Beth also mentioned the hope, this, we always talk about in divorce, what's the pace? Usually the paces for both people are different. And in this case, it might get done sooner than most divorces. And Beth made a comment, and the client, when I spent more time with her, was like, what did she mean? And this is what Beth, I think, took away. And this is a universal truth, I think, is that the emotional healing takes longer than any legal process. So the court might stamp it, but your heart and your identity likely will take more time to be aligned. So we call these like emotional aftershocks. When you feel you're done, you're like, well, I thought I was done. Well, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years down the road, you feel these things. So remember, your head and your heart they are not always at the same pace, and to be gentle and acknowledge that, not to be like, when is it coming, but know that it will come. And that's totally normal.
We'll be right back with more from the $1 Billion Dream Team. Let's take a little minute to talk about something special. If you follow me on Instagram, you all know how much I love my evil eye pendant. I love I have my bracelet. I have the pendant that goes around my neck. I wear evil eyes all the time. And so many of you have reached out asking where I got them. I'm thrilled to share with you all, drum roll please, that my favorite jewelry source, Yumi You Jewelry, is now a sponsor of Divorce and Beyond. For me, Yumi You Jewelry is more than just jewelry. The symbols are symbols of strength, individuality, and empowerment. And they handcraft each piece with love and care. And so they are designed to help women stand out and embrace our unique personalities. So whether it's an evil eye like I have chosen for protection, a hamsa for faith, or any other meaningful symbol, their pieces offer beauty and inspiration even during these tough times like divorce. So here's the best part. Yumi You is giving my listeners an exclusive discount if you use the code BEYOND, that's BEYOND, all caps, at checkout. You'll get 20% off your order. 20%. So if you're looking for a meaningful piece to keep you inspired or to protect you during this difficult time, visit divorcebeyond.com/YumiYou. That's YUMIYU. There will be a link in the show notes. And treat yourself or treat someone you love to something special. You deserve it. And now let's get back to the conversation. All right, can I just point something out to you listeners right here? You have not heard from me for about 8 minutes, and I just want you to see something. This is what a dream team looks like. You just heard these 3 professionals who have worked together, who handle cases in similar ways, who are a dream team. You see how they can work together, support each other in this conversation, and imagine that power behind you. I just want you all to think about that. When you have 3 aligned professionals like this on your team supporting you, I want you to think about what that looks like. And I wanted to make another point because just recently, and it builds on what we've been talking about here, just recently someone that I know was facing the realization that divorce was going to be in their future, and it came about fairly abruptly. And they reached out to me for some suggestions. And the first person they wanted to talk to was an attorney. And of course, I told them to talk to Beth. But the first person I put them in touch with was Jenny, the coach. And to people, I just want to say, to people out there who are listening, they may not understand that. They would think you've got to get to the attorney immediately. But what this particular person needed was someone to help them with the very emotional moment that they were going through, so that when they then could be talking to the other professionals that I recommended as well, she had a basis from to make decisions, an emotional place to make decisions. And I just want to point that out to people. And I just recently did that episode, is when you're facing divorce, there's sort of a triage of where are you at? You, like Jenny just said, tune into where you are and what you need. And that may be the professional to reach out to first. And in many cases, it is the coach rather than the divorce attorney first.
Yeah, and if you think about, like, you go into the ER, which hopefully we don't do that often, or you go into a doctor's office, you answer some questions and they figure out what level of acuity that person is. And with this person that I was honored to help, it's just saying to this person, everything's going to be okay. We're going to help you establish a team. What you're going through is normal. We're going to bite off a little bit each week and each day and focus on those things. And we're going to help you stay calm and organized. And it's an inside job, but which parts do you outsource? So a lot of people who are listening just need to know that they're not alone. Many of us have gone through divorces and can thrive during and after.
In the beyond, as we like to call it here.
Guthrie, the beyond.
When I first started in my career in wealth management, I don't remember where I heard it, saw it, read it, but it talked about how people spend more time planning a vacation than they do their retirement. And there is some validity to that now, 30 years later. Well, you're going through what might be the largest personal financial transaction of your life. Have you sat down and said, these 3 things are the most important to me? Have you sat down and said, okay, what am I the most scared about? If that financial fear could speak, if any other fear could speak, get it out. What would it say, right? Sit down with your lawyer. Not, by the way, a 1 a.m. stream of consciousness email that has 197 things in it that are all of equal priority coming out of a fire hydrant in your lawyer's inbox when he or she gets up to start their day, right? I don't want you to get the invisible attorney eye roll, but you're going to get it. So if you want to avoid the attorney eye roll, write down what matters to you, write down what you think are priorities, and then have an honest, direct conversation with your attorney about what does this stuff matter, right? And you have to be willing to hear, no, it doesn't. Divorce is not fair. It's a 4-letter word, starts with F. It's not fair. You need to understand what your lawyer can or can't make happen, what they view as a legal priority, what Jenny views as a psychological and family priority, what I am telling you is a financial priority, and not all of it is a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. And I go through these lists that people make and I say, financially, that's a 1. You keep coming back to this. You just spent $500 in that meeting talking about something that's less than 1% of the total net worth. Why? Jenny's got to figure that out with you. I can't do this. You shouldn't be paying, right? This is regardless of how much money you have. What are your priorities? What are you the most scared about? Give that fear a voice. What is it saying? Sit down with your team, with your lawyer, and say, of all these things I'm telling you, I'm scared about, matter, that I want you to shoot this mean letter off because you're being too nice to his lawyer. Guess what? Good lawyers that get along are better for you.
Oh, God, yes. How many times have you heard the client say, were you just talking to them about their kid's baseball game? Why would you be, out in the hallway? And I'm like, this is better for everyone when the professionals can work together. There's already enough emotion in all of this. And, Michelle, I really want to hone in on what you're talking about, because by defining priorities, and those are, you broke them down very important, right? There's the legal priorities, there are the financial priorities, there are the emotional and family priorities. But you need to know what those priorities are so that you can create your strategy for moving through this and getting to your beyond. And just as you need to work on what those priorities are with each team member, your team is going to come together to also help you come up with the strategy to get you to the beyond. Now, very often it's the attorney who leads the charge, Beth.
So interestingly, if you have met with any professional in your divorce, most importantly, the lawyer, and they have never asked you what your goals are, your priorities, whatever term of art they use, you have a problem, because back to creating a strategy without a clear understanding from day one, and then periodic check-ins, are those goals the same? I heard you say X. You're now asking me to do Y. That doesn't align with that initial goal. Has that goal changed? If your lawyer is not using language like that, you have a concern. The opposite of a goal is a concern. What concerns do you have? How can I help you tease out those concerns? Again, without goals and concerns or priorities and fears, whatever terms they use, without those, you cannot create a strategy legally, emotionally, or financially.
I created a 16-question questionnaire called Divorce Journey Self-Discovery, What Matters the Most in Your Divorce. And I will not work with someone until they go through this questionnaire, and I share it with the lawyer, and I share it with the Jenny, and I share it with the mediator, right? You have got to put the time in before you work with me or anybody valuable to really think about this like you're thinking about your vacation. I need you to spend the same amount of time researching you in this process that you are researching vacation options, hotels, flights. You have to put the time in to get quiet, reflective, prioritize, so that I can understand what matters the most and how I can help build your financial strategy with your lawyer around that.
So the three of us want that questionnaire.
I was just going to say, on behalf of my listeners, you can't mention a questionnaire like that without offering to share it with them, I'm hoping. So
I will send it to all of you immediately.
All right, listeners. So go to the show notes after you finish listening to this episode, and I will have a link to Michelle's questionnaire on the website. So be sure to go get that. That's so truly important, no matter whether you're a $1 billion divorce or you're a $100 divorce. Knowing where you're going. I love Beth's, way of putting this priorities and concerns. That is what you need to know, because you're going to measure all of the decisions that you make throughout your divorce against those two bars. And that is how you're going to end up on the other side of your divorce, in your beyond, where you want to be, not where you end up. Because one thing I want people to understand, and I talk about this a lot on the show as well, is people always think that they end up on the other side of divorce where the law prescribes that they're supposed to end up. They get what they're supposed to out of the property settlement. Their kids spend time with them according to what the law says, and their finances are divided in accordance with all those laws. Well, let me tell you what, folks, and I'll take a little tab out of Michelle's book here. I'm going to do a PSA. If the law were that clear, then there would be no need for anyone who is on this dream team. You wouldn't need any of us. The law does not provide clean, clear-cut beyonds for people. And that's not what you want. Beth already said that. The law doesn't get to get creative. It doesn't get to look at what is a priority for you, what is a concern for you, and craft something that works. But the way you get to what works is you have a strategy. You have to have a strategy, and then you negotiate your way toward that. And every person on this screen plays a role in negotiation as well, not just with pulling together the information, but in helping the clients understand those challenges, those concerns, and those priorities so that, I will say most often the attorney will take the lead in the actual negotiation. But Beth, you're not negotiating from what you think the beyond is supposed to be. What are you guided by?
Those goals and those concerns. And the other way to negotiate that 90% of traditional lawyers are going to negotiate is positional bargaining, which, as everyone here on this show has talked about, it's human nature. When your back's up against the wall and you hear a position, you're going to take the opposite position. And that's how lawyers get rich.
And they do get rich. Michelle probably has a few as clients. So, all right, ladies, we're going to wrap this up. And I always do the golden nuggets. And I'll still do a golden nugget wrap up, everyone. Don't worry after this. But let me ask each of you for, we all have as professionals the one big golden nugget that we try to leave every client with. So I'm going to go around the table and I'll ask, Beth, hers from a legal perspective, Michelle from a financial perspective, and Jenny from the emotional and coaching perspective. So we'll start with you, Beth. What is your one, main takeaway that you try to leave your clients with?
Follow your gut, listen to your heart and your brain, but most importantly, follow your gut in creating the dream team. If you feel vulnerable and scared and want to have that fighter, figure out with that attorney how they're going to fight for you, because just going in without a plan can be very dangerous, of course, financially, but it can be devastating emotionally.
Okay, Michelle, from a financial perspective, what is your key takeaway?
Understand and figure out what the cost of your life is. I hate the word budget. But the budget and how you've been living and what your kids need is a foundational piece of every single thing in your divorce, from child support and substantiating the needs, to spousal support and substantiating the needs, to future expenses, your going forward financial sustainability and independence. Everything in your divorce, men and women, is centered around the cost of life and what assets and income are there to support it. Without anything else except your own credit card statements, you can sit down and have a conversation with someone or even yourself about what is the cost of my life.
I like that. And I have to say, if there is one area that's more black and white than any other in divorce, Michelle's got it. The finances are relatively black and white, and there is just the money that there is. And I love that phrase, cost of your life, because budget is what we always hear. But, they're looking at what your life costs and what it's going to cost going forward is a huge part of getting to your beyond. And Jenny, I won't say last but not least, because we know absolutely that our coach insights are not last. But what would you want to leave clients with? Key takeaway.
It's extremely important to ask yourself what you need to be your best self. And if it's an overused term, I'm sorry, but what are your non-negotiables? Everybody who's listening should have a stop doing list. What are things that you need to stop doing today that take you out of the zone of being a genius and feeling your best? And what are your start doing lists? So create 5 things that you can start doing that put you in that feeling like you're grounded, that fill you up. And then what are your stop doing lists? And then practice what you preach, do it. So whether it's stopping scrolling, stop hanging around the negative person, staying up past 11 or whatever it is, and then replace those with your start doing this. It's not that hard, people. It's really not. And you'll thank yourself even while you go through your divorce. And then we'll use Susan's word beyond as well. Have fun with it.
Divorce, everyone, is a finite time in your life, and you will get through it, and you will get to your beyond. And these 2 episodes, thank you all for coming and being the dream team on the show, because I think more than any other example I've ever been able to give of the power of a dream team behind you when you go through this process, you have pulled together and shown that in a way that you can't just state. You need to just really see it. And you ladies just provided that for my listeners. So thank you all so very much for joining me for these 2 very special episodes and for being the Divorce and Beyond Dream Team. Thank you very much, ladies. Before we go, it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show, the Golden Nuggets Roundup. I asked each member of the $1 Billion Dream Team to share the one essential takeaway they want every client to carry with them. Beth reminded us to trust your gut and make sure you have the right team around you. Michelle emphasized the importance of truly understanding the cost of your life, not just your budget, but what it takes to live the life you want. And Jenny shared the power of knowing your non-negotiables and creating a start doing and stop doing list to keep yourself grounded during and after divorce. Those are true golden nuggets, whether you're facing a $1 billion divorce or not. So that brings us to the close of this very special 2-part series, the $1 Billion Divorce Playbook, lessons from the Dream Team you can use too. I want to thank Beth McCormack, Michelle Smith, and Jenny Stevens, our $1 Billion Dream Team, for joining me and for sharing their wisdom with all of us. And to all of you listening, I hope these conversations have shown you the power of building your own dream team, no matter your circumstances, and given you practical strategies you can use to move forward with clarity and strength. Be sure you're subscribed to Divorce and Beyond so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. And if you found value in these special episodes, please share them with someone who could use a little support on their divorce journey. As always, remember, divorce is not the end. It's the beginning of your beautiful beyond. Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I hope you found some information and inspiration to help you on this journey. Please join me every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode. And if you like the show, please take the time to subscribe and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also find more information on the website at divorceandbeyondpod.com, where you'll find links to the YouTube channel, transcripts of the episodes, and other bonus content. So I'll see you next week to help you move through your divorce and beyond.